Hi, y'all. Welcome to the live stream. We have an unbelievable show tonight. You are really going to be interested in this. Alec Murdaugh has changed his story again. He said he was lying, but now he says he was lying. So, does that mean that he's lying about lying, or could he be lying about lying about lying? What on earth is the truth? We are going to be unpacking all of that so you can decide what you think. We're going to listen to the original interview that Alec Murdaugh gave to his insurance company, and you'll see how conveniently he wove together the story about Gloria Satterfield falling down the steps of his home because she tripped over his dogs. And we're going to look at what he claims now, which is that he lied to the insurance company in this interview you're about to hear. And we're going to talk about the real story behind the scenes that led Alec Murdaugh to change his story. It's juicy stuff. It's lawyer wars. And to paraphrase William Congreve's quote, hell hath no fury like a lawyer scorned. You will see why this is going down the way it is. And speaking of going down, we don't want our subscriber number to go down. We are getting so close to 100,000. So please like and subscribe, and thank you to everybody who has already done that. So let's get started talking about what exactly is going on with Alec Murdaugh and his change of heart this week. So quick overview about Gloria Satterfield and what happened to her. You'll remember a lot of this from the trial. She was a nanny and housekeeper for the Murdaughs for 20 years. On February 2nd of 2018, she fell down the steps at Moselle. She died a few weeks later on February 26, 2018. She was 57 years old, and she left behind two boys, Tony and Brian. Now, Tony Satterfield testified at trial, and he said that at Gloria's funeral, Alec Murdaugh came up to him and said, I want you to sue me. I'm going to help you sue me because I've got homeowners insurance and an umbrella insurance policy that's going to cover it. And I want to see that you boys are taken care of. So I will arrange all of this for you. I will take care of it. He probably, Alec Murdaugh later came to regret this because there wasn't an umbrella policy in place when Paul wrecked the boat. But that aside, he told the Satterfields, according to what Tony said at trial, he said, look, I can't represent you against me because that's really inappropriate. I'm going to have to get a lawyer to represent you. So Corey Fleming is the lawyer I'm going to find who will represent you. The Satterfields say they never knew that Corey Fleming was Alec Murdaugh's close friend and actually his roommate from college. And so obviously a very close relationship between the two. So a year and a half go by, and in October of 2020, the case was settled for nearly $4 million, and it was dismissed. Now, I've seen several different recounts of this. I've seen several recounts that said it was 4.3 million. And I saw some today that said it was 550,000 from the underlying policy and 3.8 million from the umbrella policy for a total of about 4 million. In any event, it was roughly $4 million that the case settled for. Now, Corey Fleming admitted in court, because he is now pleading guilty, he admitted that he knew Alec Murdaugh was going to skim some money from this settlement. He said he thought that what they were going to do was what Alec was going to do was take $100,000 off the top. He was just going to take that amount, and that would just be his little cut, his little extra. Now, instead, Alec Murdaugh took all of the money, all of it. So Corey Fleming got his fee with his firm, and Alec Murdaugh got the rest. How on earth that exactly happened, I don't know, because that should never, ever happen. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Now, who's in trouble from this? Well, first of all, Alec Murdaugh, of course, but also Corey Fleming. Corey Fleming pled guilty yesterday to one count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. At that point, of course, Alec Murdaugh has the money, and he proceeds, according to Tony Satterfield, to hide the fact that there was a settlement at all. periodically Tony would call Murdaugh, or Murdaugh would call him, and they talk about this settlement. And Alec Murdaugh would say, oh yeah, I'm working on it. Those danged insurance companies, they're so slow. It just takes forever, but we're working on it. We're going to get you some money. And constantly mention a real small number. If I remember right from trial, it's maybe $100,000 for each of them compared to the $4 million actually recovered. But in June of 2021, and you remember 2021 in June, that's an important time. A relative told Tony that they had seen an article saying Tony had settled his case. Well, Tony knew nothing about that. So Tony called Alec Murdaugh. It was roughly around the time of the murders, and it was part and parcel of what the prosecution said was the motive behind the murders. They said that Alec Murdaugh was under tremendous financial pressure, and he killed his wife and son because he was under this pressure, and he thought it would distract people so they would not go after him for the money that he had stolen. So he's been telling the Satterfields that the case has not settled yet, that there's no money. And sometime in June, and Tony wasn't clear on the exact day, but at some point in June, Tony called Alec and asked again, what about my money? Do you have my money? And at that point, Alec again said, oh, no money yet, but we're working on it. We're working on it, just as he had said periodically for months, even though the case had already been settled and paid out. So the whole case, honestly, never made a lot of sense. There was a whole lot of convenient stuff around it. It frankly had a lot of earmarks of insurance scam from the beginning. Here's the short version of what Alec said, and we will look at the exact statement he made to the insurance company. He said Gloria was at his house, not for work. That was really important. We'll talk about why. That she tripped over the dog, she fell down the stairs, she was unconscious, but she suddenly revived, spoke only to Alec Murdaugh, told him exactly what was needed to get an insurance recovery from the homeowner's policy, and then went unconscious again, never spoke to anyone else, and died 4 weeks later. Now, this story from the beginning seemed a little odd to me, but we'll go through the entire statement he gave and we'll talk about all of it. The Satterfields, once they realized that Alec Murdaugh had actually settled their case and they had received $0 from it, not surprisingly sued Alec Murdaugh. And Alec did what's called confessed judgment. That means he said, yep, I stole the money. I'm sorry. He actually apologized, but he confessed, yes, I did that, and I owe you this money. I did the wrong thing. The Satterfields wound up through a series of settlements collecting what I understand to be about $7.5 million, more than they ever had even been going to receive from the insurance company. They got it from Corey Fleming, his insurance company, from lots of different parties put together. That's how much they got. So this week, Alec Murdaugh announced that he had changed his mind, and he said, actually, I lied to the insurance company in the first place. Gloria Satterfield never told me that she tripped over the dogs. The Satterfields never were entitled to the money in the first place. Bombshell, bombshell. That is people running for cover in all directions. That is crazy. There's been a confession of judgment, an admission of all of this, and suddenly, nope, the whole thing was insurance fraud from the beginning. That is Alec Murdaugh's story right now. So let's listen to that original interview that I've been talking about, and I'm going to cut in fairly frequently and talk a little bit about it and about what exactly Alec Murdaugh is saying, why he's saying it, and why it is exactly so convenient and so carefully tailored to what he needs them to believe and to understand. Now, I cut some from this just to get it shortened, so it's not the exact full thing. I think I've got it down to something like 8 minutes from 12 or something like that it originally was. So let's go ahead and play this. Just a second, let me get it all teed up.
Please.
Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
And do you go by Alexander?
I go by Alec.
Okay.
So just wanted you to notice, I go by Alec. So that's how he says it. And he also says Murdaugh instead of Murdaugh, but at least it has the K sound.
And that's short for Alexander, obviously.
Yes, sir.
All right. And you understood, I already asked you that. What's your home address?
It is 515 Holly Street, Extension, Hampton, South Carolina, 29924.
Is that your primary residence address?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How long have you lived there?
Since January of 2000, so 18 years. Well, 17 years and some.
So one of the things that's important about what Alec is saying is that the place where they were wasn't his regular home. This is going to be one of the issues that's going to come into play is, was Gloria Satterfield there for work? And he's going to say she was not there for work. We'll talk about why that matters. So this was not her usual workplace.
Alec, you and I have been meeting to talk about an occurrence that happened here at the property involving a Gloria Satterfield back on February 2nd of this year, which was a Friday. And you recall the incident I'm referring to?
I went to work that morning and I received a phone call from my wife that Gloria was injured, seriously injured, and asking me if I could come home. Upon arriving, found Gloria, my wife, my son Paul, and my employee Ronnie Freeman on the, we call it a patio for lack of a better term, landing area at the bottom of the steps. Gloria was there, sitting up, big pool of blood, a lot of blood on the side of her face.
That's important because Alec Murdaugh is saying that Gloria Satterfield was alert, that she's about to talk to him. There were no witnesses of the fall down the stairs except Gloria Satterfield. Now, if Gloria, in fact, was unconscious the whole time, if she never spoke to Alec Murdaugh, if she never said what happened, there was no one who could say that she tripped over the dogs. There was no reason other than that to believe that the dogs had anything to do with this. And they were critical to collecting from the homeowner's policy and the umbrella policy. So Alec Murdaugh is setting this up as Gloria was there, she's sitting up, she's alert, and although she has blood on the side of her face, she's clearly not doing well. She's also capable.
And shortly after I arrived here, EMS arrived and tended to her.
Did you know Gloria was coming to your house that day?
I didn't.
Okay.
But
Was that uncommon? Was that uncommon for Gloria to be here at your house?
Uncommon for her to be here?
Yeah. You said when you left for work that morning, you didn't know that Gloria was going to be coming to work. Coming for any purpose to the house.
I didn't know that day.
Right.
My wife knew she was coming.
Okay.
Now, why is this so important? Why does this matter? It's because if Gloria Satterfield was coming to work, maybe workers' compensation ought to cover her instead of the homeowner's policy and the umbrella policy. Workers' compensation is different. Usually people can recover more easily with a lot less proof, but they recover a lot less. There are limitations placed by the state legislature and by regulation on the amount that can be recovered. And it would have been nowhere remotely near the $4 million that was recovered in this case. So Alec is giving just the right amount of information to say Gloria Satterfield was not coming to work that day. She was not covered by workers' comp insurance, and therefore this insurance ought to apply.
Did you, and when you talked with your wife, you understood that she was coming for what reason?
Gloria was coming to be paid. My mom inadvertently left town without paying Gloria for work and had asked Maggie to pay her on her behalf. And so
This is doubly convenient now because we've got Gloria Satterfield at Moselle, but she's not there to work. And she's just there to collect pay. And on top of that, she's not even there to collect pay for working for Alec's family. She's there to collect for working for his mother at a completely different household. And it's somewhat suspect because we heard a lot of testimony, granted some 2 to 3 years later, about how very incapacitated Alec Murdaugh's mother was, that she was highly impaired and had mental issues because of dementia. So it was odd that she was the one paying, or even that she left town. Although since this was earlier, it may be that her condition wasn't as serious. But all told, this is extremely convenient that Gloria Satterfield is there for nothing related to collecting money from the Murdaughs, and definitely nothing related to working for Alec Murdaugh's family.
So Gloria was coming here to get paid.
Okay. And were you able to speak with Gloria before she was taken away in the ambulance?
I was.
Okay. Did you ask her what happened?
Sure, I asked her what happened. I mean, the first thing I was making sure that Gloria, I was trying to assess her mental capability at the time. Did she know where she was? Did she know what was going on? That type of thing. And, you know, asking her if she knew me. Did she know Maggie? Did she know Paul? Did she know Ronnie? Did she know where she was? So
How was she responding to those?
she knew those things. She knew where she was. She knew who I was. I mean, she obviously was not functioning at full capacity, but she did. She knew those things.
Okay.
Notice the fine line that Alec Murdaugh is walking here, because on the one hand, Gloria Satterfield has to be alert enough and has to be knowledgeable enough to be able to talk about what just happened. Otherwise, it's no good at all. But at the same time, she has to be in a condition that matches what the EMTs saw when they arrived, which is someone who was unconscious and extremely impaired and who never woke up again. So all of those things have to be put together. And he walks that exact fine line. And I want to say thank you to Mama Pink. And yes, happy birthday to Marlon. Glad that you had your birthday on Wednesday, he was telling us.
And then the ambulance removed her, and did you follow the ambulance after that?
I did.
Okay.
I followed the ambulance to Colleton Hospital, and they were a little bit ahead of me.
And in particular, I think you had expressed that Bourbon, the female chocolate lab, had been away at a obedience school. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And how long had she been back when this incident occurred?
I believe that when this thing was going on, we knew. I think it had been a day. I think she had been back a little more than a day.
Okay.
Again, super convenient. There just so happened to be a dog bad enough that the dog just had gotten back from obedience training school. Just back the day before. Again, super convenient for Alec's story.
And when you were talking with Gloria before she was taken away, did she describe the chain of events in any way to you? Obviously, she was out of it.
She indicated that the dogs had caused her to fall.
Okay.
So there it is. Gloria conveniently alert enough, awake enough, just for a moment in time to describe exactly the one thing, or one of the few things, that would trigger liability from the homeowner's policy and the umbrella policy. And after that, no longer able to talk or communicate with anyone but Alec Murdaugh.
And she was at the base of the front steps
She was.
when you arrived.
My understanding was she was sitting on the base of the steps when I arrived. Now, my understanding from my wife, when she found her, she was unconscious, and her head was on the landing area, and her feet were up the steps.
So she was upside down.
Well, I think she was laying on her back or on her side, but her feet were up on like the second step,
Yeah.
and her head was on the ground. So she was literally on the steps with her head down on the brick landing area.
Okay.
Let me stop here for a second. So notice this. Gloria was unconscious, and Alec needed to say that because of the fact that that's how she was found, and the EMTs probably have already been told that by Maggie and by Paul that she was unconscious when they found her. But she was awake enough, just long enough to tell Alec Murdaugh what she needed to say, then unconscious again, and now.
Did Gloria live here at the property?
No, she did not.
And how long?
Okay, that was a potential trap, which was sidestepped. Alec did not fall into that. If she had lived at the property, maybe she would actually be at work, but that was not the case.
Would you estimate that Gloria had been doing work for you and or your family?
She's been working for our family for, close to 20 years, I would estimate. I know she babysat my children when my youngest was an infant, so
Okay.
he's 19.
All right.
So,
And she was paid along. She was not a full-time employee.
she was an hourly, she would be paid by the hour when she would work.
When was the last time you would estimate that Gloria had worked for either you or your wife Maggie here at the house prior to this event?
Gloria did something, she was routinely doing things for us.
All right.
Again, Alec Murdaugh making sure that she was not at work on that day, that she was paid hourly. This was not a day when she was being paid hourly or was doing any work.
And she was familiar with Bubba, Blue, and Sassy. Did she ever have any problems with any of those dogs?
No.
Okay.
She was familiar with them, and she would have been familiar with Bourbon before she went off to. I don't know if we ever had her. I'm trying to think. I don't know that we ever had Bourbon at home before, but she was certainly familiar with Bourbon. With Bubba, Blue, and
Sassy. Okay. Did she, during the course when she would be working for you, would she feed the dogs?
Sure.
Okay.
There've been occasions where she did.
Did you ever?
Notice how close that one was. Again, narrowly avoiding a trap. Alec realizes that he's just said, oh, she was super familiar with all the dogs. He even mentions Bourbon. And then he realizes, wait a minute, or at least it seems to me like maybe he realizes if Gloria knew Bourbon and knew Bourbon was ill-behaved, maybe she should have been aware and she should have taken more care for herself. So Alec backtracks on that. So it's not an issue. He said, well, I'm not even sure we ever had Bourbon here. All the other dogs, but not Bourbon. Maybe that one dog actually was not ever at the house with Gloria before.
Have any other incidences involving any problems with the dogs being aggressive or any similar, I guess any kind of incident with a complaint about the dogs?
We've never had any issue with any of the dogs being vicious or aggressive in the sense of violence or biting or attacking or any of that.
That's an important point, because if the dogs had been violent, then maybe the Murdaughs should have taken action before. Not something maybe that the insurance company would have covered. Maybe they should have already done something, but he says that's not the case.
And the problem is, and why we sent Bourbon to obedience school, is as I told you earlier, she's so hyper, she would all the dogs get stirred up and they compete to be petted and to get attention. And so, what I'm assuming happened is when Gloria pulled up, the dogs are, rushing her.
For affection.
For affection. And
Not aggression, but affection.
the way they all do when Bourbon's here is different than they do when it's just them.
Okay. So there was no witness to the chain of events?
To the fall itself?
Right.
No, sir. Not
Okay.
that I'm aware of.
So Alec Murdaugh has told the perfect story. He has come up with the perfect scenario, not a mean-spirited dog, as he said at the end, and there's nobody around to contradict what Alec has said. And the insurance company paid. They not only paid, but they paid extremely generously. As I talked about several times during the course of the trial, it was well past what I would have expected an insurance company to pay under these circumstances, with all of the questions that would have been around it because of the testimony of Alec Murdaugh, because of Alec being the only witness and all of those sorts of questions. So Corey Fleming collected $4 million for the Satterfields. There was no scenario by which any of that money should have gone to Alec Murdaugh. No scenario. He's not the client. He's not the injured party. He's not the attorney representing the Satterfields. There's just no reason for him to get anything. I don't have any doubt that Alec's reasoning probably was, I'm the one who created the case and thought of it, and I should get a cut. And maybe even that it wouldn't be such a big recovery if it weren't for me having created the case. And so I should get most of it. And that probably morphed into somehow I should get all of the money. But under no circumstance, under no scenario should he have received even one penny of their money, because he was the defendant. He doesn't get paid. They get paid. He's the defendant. Now, in September of 2021, the Satterfield estate sued Alec Murdaugh. By now, Alec Murdaugh is suspected of the murders. He's been to rehab or is in rehab, and he's been fired from his law firm. The Satterfields say, you stole from us. They also sued Corey Fleming, Corey Fleming's law firm, the insurance company, all of those. I mean, the malpractice insurance carrier for Corey Fleming. Alec has no defense that I know about. And on May 31st, 2021, he does what's called confessing judgment, as I said earlier. He admitted he took the money from the settlement that belonged to Gloria Satterfield's estate, to her sons, not to Alec Murdaugh. He admitted liability, and he even apologized. This is as serious as it gets in practicing law. It is something that, as far as I know, 100% of the time will get your law license yanked. Saying that, admitting that you took the client's money for yourself is high crimes and misdemeanors in the law field. Almost certain disbarment. That's what happened here. Serious, serious confession that he made. And there were consequences of it. A lot of people relied on it. The Satterfields did, their attorneys did, the law firms for Corey Fleming, his own law firm, Alec's law firm, relied on it. The insurance company, the court, lots of people relied on that confession of judgment. And now for the juicy part, the lawyer battles. In May of this year, Alec Murdaugh, of course, has already been convicted of murdering his wife and son. And he admitted all of those financial crimes at trial, as we all heard, many, multiple financial crimes. He has now filed a motion to vacate his confession of judgment against the Satterfields. In other words, to take it back, to say, I want you to ignore the fact that I confessed judgment. Why? Because I lied. Because I lied from the very beginning. I made that whole thing up about the dogs. No dogs were involved. That she never told me she tripped over the dogs. What happened was the insurance company was defrauded. That's who lost here. is the insurance company. There never should have been a settlement that would go to the Satterfields, and therefore the Satterfields should have to pay that money back because it was all insurance fraud. The only reason I confessed judgment is because it was no skin off my teeth. I wasn't actually going to have to pay any part of it because everybody knew I didn't have any money left over. So all I had to do was admit responsibility and apologize. And that was what the confession of judgment was based on. This right here is the freedom that comes with having nothing to lose. And that's pretty much where Alec Murdaugh is right now. So what does this mean? This means that the insurance company is very happy, but pretty much everybody else is mad, including or especially the Satterfields and their lawyers. Why? Why is this happening? Why would he suddenly want to vacate his confession of judgment? Well, here's the reason, and we get to dive into lawyer wars right here. The Satterfields are represented by Eric Bland of Bland Richter, and they issued a press release in response to Alec Murdaugh's motion. And here's what they said. Alec Murdaugh's May 16th motion is yet another filing in a long line of rolls of legal toilet paper that Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin have filed in the multitude of civil and criminal actions on behalf of their client, who is a liar, a thief, and a twice convicted murderer. So there you have it. That's pretty clear. But let's go on to hear why they think this happened. This is personal. Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin are improperly utilizing the judicial process for ulterior motives that are meant to harass and victimize the Satterfields again and constitutes vexatious conduct. I don't mind these attorneys taking shots at us, comes with the territory. They are upset that they do not get $160,000 for Murdaugh's appeal as a result of arguments that Bland Richter recently made. They are nothing but paper bullies. We will continue to fight them in every courtroom in the land to obtain justice for our clients and stop their gaming of the system. They also have said they think Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin should be investigated for revealing confidential settlement discussions, which you are not allowed to do. So what is he talking about? What is this $160,000? Let's step it back even further. Now, Murdaugh had a pile of money in his 401k. He initially got $600,000 from that to pay his lawyers for his defense at trial. That money is gone. 420. So, I mean, and it's not surprising really, given how long the trial was, given that they had experts, given how big the team was, it's not a surprise that that money is gone. But $424,000 is left in that retirement fund. And the attorneys for Alec Murdaugh asked for $160,000 of that $424,000 for Alec Murdaugh's appeal. And they said, look, they even broke it down as to exactly what they wanted. And I'm going to do another video, I think, on what exactly they said it was going to cost for the appeal and on how much they spent on the case so far, how much they spent defending him in court. I thought it was kind of interesting. So let me know if you would like to see that video. I think it would be fairly short, but I think it would be interesting. So his attorney said, we need $160,000 in order to bring his appeal. It's going to cost us that much there. And they listed all the things they would have to do, like buy the transcript and things like that. Well, guess who argued against giving the $160,000 to Alec's attorneys for his appeal? That's right. Bland Richter argued against it. And what Eric Bland said afterwards, what he told a news outlet, was feeling really good with Judge Hall's ruling denying Alec Murdaugh's request for $160,000 of attorney's fees for his appeal. I argued it would be unfair to Alec's victims and creditors to permit him to jump to the front of the line and grab that money. The judge then ruled that Alec's team could not get the $160,000 for the appeal. So now what? Do Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin just have to get off the case? Do They have to go without pay. We don't really know what the solution will be, but shortly after that, this motion got filed, and Bland Richter says this motion is retaliation for the fact that we oppose you're getting paid out of this 401k money for the appeal for Alec Murdaugh. The irony, the huge irony of it is that at long last, my guess would be this story is finally true. It really was unbelievably convenient. All of the things that Alec Murdaugh said happened, the way it happened to come together, just exactly right for him to be able to collect from the insurance company. But I think it's way too late by now. The court, I don't see how a court could let a party make a confession of judgment and then take it back after everyone has relied on it. I think it's just too late. It sort of reminds me of, you may remember these quotes from the trial where this was during the sentencing, and the judge said, "Remind me of the expression you gave on the witness stand. Oh, what a tangled web we weave. What did you mean by that?" And Murdaugh said, "I meant when I lied, I continued to lie." Murdaugh and the judge then said, "And the question is, when will it end? When will it end?" And it is ended already for the jury because they concluded that you continue to lie and lied throughout your testimony. And that's the problem. I think the entire quote is, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when once we practice to deceive." And the idea is once you start lying, it's really hard to stop. And everything then is a lie built on a lie, built on a lie. And there have been so many by now that it's really difficult to tell what's true anymore. And I think that that was true for the jury. I think the judge was correct. The jury just said, look, we see so many lies, we don't feel like we can trust you anymore. And that has happened exactly here. My guess is that there would have been that this probably is a true story. It seemed awfully convenient but I just do not see how the court can let him take it back at this late stage of the game. So thank you everybody for coming. I'm going to be doing a special show tomorrow night. It's on Gabby Petito. I've already done the video, but I think I'll be doing it as a premiere tomorrow night so I can be in the chat with you. And I want to talk about the new information we got, the letter that the laundries had to turn over to the Petitos, the one that says burn after reading. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to unpack it. I'm going to see, is it the bombshell that it sounds like? What's it going to mean for the suit between where the Petitos have sued the laundries? We're going to be talking about that tomorrow night. So be sure to hit the like button and subscribe because you want to keep coming back. I know you do, and I'm so glad to have you here. So I will see you all tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. And then hopefully next week we'll be able to return to our usual Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you all soon.